The moment those keys hit the auction block, 73-year-old Margaret knew her own children had just signed her death warrant. But what they didn't know was that Margaret had stopped trusting them the day they asked for her signature on the family trust papers. And she had already done something so clever, so unexpected, that when the truth finally came out, her son would vomit right there on the courthouse steps. Backhand index pointing down. Don't forget to subscribe and share this story, because what happens next will leave you speechless. Backhand index pointing down asterisk asterisk. The house had been in the family for 52 years. Margaret's mother bought it with money saved from cleaning other people's houses. Every brick, every cracked floorboard, every squeaky stair held a memory. And when her mother passed, Margaret promised herself one thing: that house would never leave the family. But promises mean nothing when your own children see you as a problem. Started small. Her son, Derek, began visiting more often. He brought flowers, sat through her long stories about the past, and even fixed the leaky faucet in the kitchen without being asked. Margaret almost cried that day. She thought he had finally changed. She thought her son actually cared. Her daughter Vanessa called every evening. Sweet voice, concerned tone. Always asking about Margaret's health, her memory, whether she had paid the property taxes yet. "You're getting older, Mom," Vanessa would say. "We just want to make sure you're okay." For 3 months Margaret believed them. Then one night she couldn't sleep. She walked downstairs to make tea and heard Derek's voice coming from the living room. He had left his phone on the couch, and it was still connected to Vanessa. They hadn't hung up properly. Margaret stood in the darkness and listened. "She's losing it," Derek said. "Yesterday she asked me the same question 4 times. The doctor says she's showing early signs. We need to move fast before she fights us." Vanessa's voice crackled through the speaker. The appraisal came back. "The house is worth $800,000. If we put it in a trust now, we split everything once she's in the home. The lawyer said we just need her signature. What if she says no? Then we get power of attorney. The doctor will back us up. Everyone will believe us." His old Derek. Who's going to fight for her? Margaret's tea went cold in her hands. She stood there for 10 more minutes, listening to her children plan the rest of her life like she was already dead. They talked about nursing homes, about selling her furniture, about which real estate agent gave the best commission. When the call ended, Margaret quietly went back upstairs. She didn't sleep. She sat on the edge of her bed and stared at the photograph of her mother on the nightstand, the woman who had scrubbed floors so her daughter could have a roof over her head. "I'm sorry, Mama," Margaret whispered, "but they're not getting this house." The next morning, she smiled at Derek when he arrived with coffee and pastries. She let him hug her. She let Vanessa come over with the trust papers and explain everything in that slow, careful voice people use when they think you're stupid. "It's just paperwork, Mom," Vanessa said, pointing to the dotted line. "This protects the house for the family." Margaret picked up the pen. She looked at her daughter. She looked at her son. Then she looked at the paper. "I need my reading glasses," she said. "They're in the attic." Both children exchanged a glance. Derek nodded. "Take your time, Mom." Margaret climbed the stairs slowly. She made sure they heard her footsteps creaking all the way up. But once she reached the attic, she moved faster than she had in years. She pulled out a small metal box hidden beneath old Christmas decorations. Inside were documents she had prepared 6 months ago, back when she first noticed Vanessa asking too many questions about the deed. She had hired a lawyer without telling anyone, paid cash from her secret savings, and filed something her children would never expect. Margaret hid the box again, grabbed her glasses and went back downstairs. She sat at the kitchen table, put on her glasses, and read every single word of the trust papers. Derek tapped his foot. Vanessa checked her phone. Then Margaret signed her name. But not on the trust papers. She asked for a glass of water. While Vanessa went to the kitchen, Margaret slipped the real documents, the ones she had brought down from the attic, onto the table. She signed those instead. Her children never noticed. They were too busy celebrating. "Perfect," Derek said, snatching the papers away. We'll file these tomorrow. Margaret just smiled. Thank you for taking care of me. For months passed. Derek and Vanessa became distant again. The daily visits stopped. The phone calls became texts. And one afternoon, a real estate agent showed up at Margaret's door with a lockbox. "Excuse me," Margaret said. "What are you doing?" The agent looked confused. "Ma'am, the house sold this morning. The new owners take possession in 30 days. Margaret felt her chest tighten. She grabbed the doorframe. "Sold? Who sold my house?" "Your son, ma'am. Derek Thornton. He had power of attorney and all the signed documents." Margaret closed the door. She walked to her bedroom. She sat on the edge of her bed and stared at her mother's photograph again. For a long moment she just breathed. Then she picked up her phone and called the one person her children had forgotten about, her lawyer. "It's time," Margaret said. "File everything." 2 weeks later, Derek and Vanessa stood outside the house with champagne bottles and a "for sold" sign stuck in the front yard. They were laughing. Vanessa was already talking about vacation homes. Derek was calculating his share of the profit. Then a black SUV pulled up. 3 people got out. A woman in a sharp gray suit, a man carrying a leather briefcase, and a sheriff's deputy. "Derek Thornton and Vanessa Cole?" the woman asked. Vanessa lowered her champagne. "Who's asking?" The woman opened a folder. "I'm attorney Rebecca Hunt. I represent Margaret Thornton. She has filed a motion to nullify the sale of this property based on fraudulent power of attorney and forged signatures." Derek laughed. "Forged? She signed everything herself. We have witnesses." Rebecca Hunt smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Your mother signed documents that day." "That is correct. But she did not sign your trust papers. She signed a property lien transfer that gave 90% ownership of this house to a separate entity, the Margaret Thornton Family Trust, which names only one beneficiary." Vanessa's face went pale. "What beneficiary?" "Her grandson. Your nephew. Michael." The name hit like a punch to the stomach. Michael was Derek's son, the one he had abandoned when the boy was 7. The one he hadn't spoken to in 15 years. The one Margaret had secretly raised after Derek threw him out for being gay. Derek's champagne bottle slipped from his hand and shattered on the sidewalk. "That's not possible. Michael is nothing. He's nobody. He has no right." "He has every right," Rebecca interrupted. "Your mother transferred ownership to Michael 8 months ago. The documents were notarized, witnessed, and filed with the county. Your so-called power of attorney was obtained through medical misrepresentation. The doctor who signed it has already admitted to the board that he never examined your mother. He signed because you paid him." Vanessa grabbed Derek's arm. Her nails dug into his skin. "This can't be happening. We already spent the deposit. We put offers on other properties." The sheriff's deputy stepped forward. "I'm here to serve you both with a notice of civil fraud. You're required to appear in court within 14 days. Derek's face turned red, then purple. He pushed past the deputy and stormed toward the front door. He pounded on it with both fists. Open this door." The door opened. But it wasn't Margaret. A young man stood there. Clean-shaven. Wearing a simple blue button-down shirt. His eyes were calm, but they held something harder than anger. They held the quiet steel of someone who had already survived the worst betrayal of his life, and learned that blood means nothing when love is absent. "Hello, Dad," Michael said. Derek stumbled backward like he had been shot. You're not supposed to be here. Grandma called me last night. She told me everything." Michael stepped onto the porch and closed the door behind him. "She also told me to give you a message." Vanessa was crying now. Ugly, messy tears that smeared her mascara. "Michael, please. Or family. We can work this out." Michael looked at her. Really looked at her. The same aunt who had called him a bad influence. The same aunt who had told Derek to let the boy figure it out on his own, when he was 16 and sleeping on park benches. Family. Michael repeated. You threw me out when I was a kid. You told Grandma I was going to hell. You didn't come to my high school graduation. You didn't come to my wedding. And now you want to talk about family because you're losing money. Derek straightened his jacket. He was trying to regain control. Margaret could see it from the upstairs window where she stood watching. She knew that posture. She had seen it 1,000 times. Her son pretending to be powerful when he was actually terrified. Listen to me, Derek said, pointing a finger at Michael. You're going to sign those ownership papers back to me, or I swear to God I will make your life so miserable. Michael pulled a folded document from his back pocket. Grandma wanted me to read you something. She wrote it herself. The street had gone quiet. Neighbors were standing on their lawns. Someone was recording on their phone. Derek looked around, panicked. Don't read anything. This is private. Michael unfolded the paper and began to read in a clear, steady voice. To my children, Derek and Vanessa. You stopped being my children the day you decided my house was worth more than my life. You lied to doctors. You forged signatures. You planned to put me in a home where no one would visit. I heard every word of that phone call 6 months ago. Every single word. Vanessa let out a wail. She dropped to her knees on the sidewalk. Michael continued. I gave this house to Michael because he is the only one who ever loved me without wanting something in return. He came to my hospital bed when I broke my hip. He called me every Sunday for 10 years. He never asked for money or the house or anything except my time. That is what family means. And you two never understood that. Derek was shaking now. His lips moved, but no words came out. The house is not yours, Michael read. It was never yours. It belongs to my mother's memory. And Michael will keep it safe. I have already paid all the taxes for the next 5 years. I have already set up a maintenance fund. You cannot touch any of it. You cannot fight any of it. I am old, but I am not stupid. I outsmarted you months ago. And I would do it again. Margaret finished her tea. She watched her son and daughter fall apart on the front lawn. She watched her grandson fold the letter and put it back in his pocket. She watched the sheriff's deputy escort Derek and Vanessa to their cars. Then she picked up her phone and called Michael. You did good, she said. Grandma, they're not going to stop. They'll find another lawyer. They'll try to appeal. Margaret smiled. Let them try. While they were busy lying to me, I was busy getting ready. I recorded every conversation we had for the last 6 months. I have the doctor's confession on tape. I have the real estate agent admitting she knew the sale was suspicious. And I have a safe deposit box with everything a judge needs to bury them. Michael laughed. It was a sound of pure relief. You really planned all of this. Baby, Margaret said. I survived cancer. I survived your grandfather's drinking. I survived losing my mother. You think 2 spoiled children were going to be the ones to break me? She looked out the window one more time. Derek was screaming at Vanessa now, pointing fingers, blaming each other. It was ugly and sad and exactly what they deserved. Come inside, Margaret told Michael. I made meatloaf. Grandma, it's 9 in the morning. And Meatloaf doesn't know what time it is. Michael laughed again. He walked back into the house and closed the door. And somewhere in the distance, a police car pulled away from the curb, carrying the deputy to his next call. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. 3 weeks later, Margaret received a letter. It was from Derek. Not an apology. Derek would never apologize. It was a notice that he had sold his rights to a debt collector. The letter claimed that Margaret owed him $50,000 for caretaking expenses from the years he had visited her. $50,000 for a few cups of coffee and a fixed faucet. Margaret read the letter twice. Then she called Rebecca Hunt. Can he do this? Margaret asked. Rebecca was silent for a moment. He can try. But Margaret, there's something I haven't told you yet. Something your grandson asked me to keep secret until now. Margaret's hand tightened on the phone. What secret? Michael didn't just accept the house. 3 months ago he sold his startup, that tech company he's been building in his garage. He sold it for $2.4 million. Margaret dropped the phone. She stared at the wall. $2.4 million. The boy who used to sleep on park benches. The boy her own son had called a failure. She picked up the phone. Rebecca, are you still there? I'm here. And Michael wants you to know something else. He's using half of that money to create a foundation. It's called the Grandma Project. It helps elderly people fight fraudulent power of attorney cases. Free lawyers. Free advocates. He's naming it after you. Margaret felt tears running down her cheeks. Not sad tears. Not angry tears. The kind of tears that come when you realize love is real and it was always real, even when everyone else tried to destroy it. That boy, Margaret whispered. That sweet, wonderful boy. There's more, Rebecca said. Derek and Vanessa's fraud case goes to trial next month. The district attorney is adding charges of elder abuse. They're looking at 5 years each. Minimum. Margaret wiped her eyes. What happens next will